Commander Maxwell reporting for duty, sir. What's our status?
Some of our leaders were in the front line. They were exterminated. I am now the highest ranking Time Lord on site. I've regenerated several times, as you can tell. I am not the Romana I once was. They've killed me so many times that I've lost count. I believe I'm on my last regeneration now. What do we know about these Daleks?
They are composed of a material formed from the stone of Invicta, an impenetrable diamond that anything that attempts to destroy it merely makes it stronger. They also contain self-upgrading cyber technology and the sensor units of a Mechanoid. They possess the firepower of a paradigm Dalek combined with the blast of a special weapons Dalek. They, however, feature no mutant creature within. They are purely radio-controlled, yet the signal is somewhat untraceable and the frequency unmimicable. But we do have a rough location.
These Daleks are like a patchwork of the most deadliest elements. Who do you believe is in control of these Daleks?
The name Davros comes to mind. There have been temporal disturbances all over his timeline. Perhaps this is the reason why. More than one Davros at the same point in time.
Davros? Creator of the Daleks? I've encountered him numerous times. I remember when I met him during the Movellan War. If what you say is true, then we stand no chance.
Indeed. I've come up with a method on dealing with these Diamond Daleks.
Pray tell.
We are Time Lords. We have access to the Time Vortex, and I hate admitting it, but we need help. Our garrison and forces are busy protecting the planet, so who do we have to spare?
The Doctor.
Precisely. Using our methods of time travel, perhaps the Doctors can follow the path of creation of these Diamond Daleks and discover some weaknesses within them. Or better still, their complete knowledge of the Daleks may allow them to track down the source of control.
Doctors? More than one Doctor?
Precisely. More than one Doctor may be necessary. I propose we bring in 5 of them. The main problem being that we don't have enough energy to contact Doctors that know Davros. We could try his 7th incarnation, but we have a better chance of his earlier incarnations.
You know as well as I that there are always difficulties bringing in more than 3 of him. The timelines often dissolve when you include a 4th, but perhaps it is worth a shot anyhow.
Then perhaps we can call upon the services of a Doctor from another universe. It may be risky, but we could divert the little power we have to that technology after we get the other 3 Doctors.
Even then, the Doctors will not work together. They will refuse. Trust me, I've travelled with him and know what he's like.
And for that reason there will be a moderator for the Doctors, someone they all trust more than anyone else in the universe. That person will be the bridge between the Doctors.
May I be of assistance?
What the devil? How did you get in here?
I have my ways of breaking into this wretched place. Put your stasis down. I am here to assist. I overheard you were looking for a moderator.
The Doctor would never trust you to be this moderator.
Then perhaps it is best that I persuade the Doctor to help you by working with this Davros. It seems logical and beneficial to you.
And why should we trust you?
Oh, my dear Time Lords, you know me too well. You shouldn't, but I am one of your last hopes.
That is indeed true. We shall give you your mission and send you to face the Doctor in his 1st and 3rd incarnation.
I will only do so if you give me a reward.
What did you have in mind?
A Gallifreyan sniper. I have a use for it in my future.
Deal. Now we just need to think of a companion very close to the Doctor, who can be a bridge between the 5 and 1 we can contact. Then we bring his first 3 incarnations, an incarnation from another universe, alongside his 7th incarnation, who knows Davros better than most incarnations to their designated times. But who shall the bridge be?
I believe I may have someone in mind.
Who did you have in mind?
Susan, could you pass me that thermometer?
What was that, Grandfather?
Oh, I shall get it myself then, shall I?
So, where or when are we going next, Grandfather?
I will decide that once I fix this damn fluid link.
What's wrong with it?
It appears to be overheating, and then the temperature plummets. It is in a state of constant flux.
Why is that?
You really do ask a lot of questions, my dear. There really is no need for it. Now, if you don't mind, I'm working.
Okay, Grandfather. I should look at the scanner and see if I can find a destination.
All right, my dear. And don't pick anywhere too sandy this time. I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, and gets all over my console.
Susan, can you hear me?
Who are you?
My name is Commander Maxwell. We need your help.
My help? Why not my grandfather?
He has a key part to play in this plan, as do you. Put these coordinates into your TARDIS.
Oh, dear girl. Who are you talking to?
Can't you see him? On the scanner?
Susan, you really are starting to worry me now.
Only you can see me. Enter the coordinates. It will take the ship to a planet that is in imminent danger. The destruction of the planet will cause a chain of events that will destroy Gallifrey itself. Once there, tell the Doctor to find and destroy Davros. It will make sense to him in time.
How do I know this isn't a trap?
Because the entirety of Gallifrey is in your hands. Its destruction is imminent, and it is up to you and your grandfather to save us. Good luck!
It was as if TARDIS was being controlled by some unimaginable power. It had been knocked off course and diverted through a portal in the fabric of space and time, sent hurtling around every system and dimension, until it finally stopped on the planet Mechanus. With the controls rendered inoperative, Doctor Who got his bearings and checked over his ship before stepping out onto the planet outside.
Most disturbing. I only entered the ship to check over the controls, and now I have somehow materialized here. Wherever here may be.
He stroked his moustache and held his monocle over his eye. Kicking the ground, he realised it was not an entirely mud-ridden surface, but mere centimetres below the dirt was an impermeable steel surface.
Metallic planet. How curious.
A bomb went off in the distance, the smoke just visible over a line of trees on the horizon. Doctor Who was startled, but his curiosity aroused.
A war-torn planet, perhaps. But how did I come to be here? I think I should investigate.
Chirpy, he began wandering forward, and after minutes of walking, he entered the line of trees. Visibility was poor. The purple moonlight was very dim, and meant there was little light under the shade of the trees. It was so dark, in fact, that Doctor Who stopped his toe on something heavy and metal. He reached down to pick up whatever the object was, and he was immediately disgusted, and threw it back to the dirt where it belonged. It was a Dalek gun.
Maybe that's why TARDIS has brought me here.
He continued on his way through the trees, and as he reached the end of them, he hid behind the last one and peered out. Beyond the trees was a torn-up landscape of what was a fallen silver city. The remains of alien architecture lay scattered round as they became a battlefield for a magnificent war, where no blood was to be spilled. The ruined city had become an array of trenches and horror. Firework-like explosions glittered the horizon. Great fire-like laser beams shot forward and backwards across the battlefield. But no screams were heard. Well, only one scream. Only one scream repeated nearly 17 million times. This scream was a war cry. This war cry was
Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
screamed the distant Daleks that fired off blast after blast into the magenta night sky.
Exterminate!
Although this scream was not so distant, It was really loud in the ears of Doctor Who. In fact, it was so loud that it was coming from mere feet behind him. Almost frozen with fear, Doctor Who shivered around to greet the Dalek. It was less colourful than the Daleks he had known before. It was more of a gunmetal grey colour. It looked more battle-ready than the Daleks he was used to. But yet he was used to staring down the eye stalk of a Dalek, and hid his terror well behind a series of poker faces that were all lined up in the face of a Dalek. The Dalek stood motionless, seemingly awaiting orders. Then it swiveled around away from Doctor Who. It swung its eye stalk from side to side, scoping out the trees. Blast! A blue flare had shot through the trees and hit the Dalek. The Dalek exploded. Doctor Who stepped forward to examine the Dalek. He felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Like the Dalek had done, he too scoped out the trees.
If there is someone there, please do not hide. I mean you no harm, and in many ways I am indebted to you.
Doctor Who indicated the destroyed Dalek, which was still flaming by his side, and as he did, Stuntman stepped out of the shadows. It was a Cyberman, but it was unlike any Cyberman that Doctor Who had seen before. It was the type he had met with a transparent jaw, but unlike this type of Cyberman, the one that was staring right in front of him did not carry a gun. Instead, its entire arm had been replaced with a large cannon. This was a special weapons Cyberman.
You will come with me, or you shall be eradicated,
The Cyberman ordered before marching round and walking off. Hesitant, but intrigued, Doctor Who followed, hobbling along the unstable metal ground. Doctor Who seemed to follow the Cyberman for several miles. Alas, the intrepid explorer of the galaxy was used to long treks on his adventures. Within an hour or so, the Cyberman stalled next to a bright blue crystalline cliff face. A heavy door had been built into the surface of the cliff, which the Cyberman now approached as the bleeping of sensors scanned his cybernetic body. The door shot upwards, granting the Cyberman entry. Doctor Who followed it inside. Inside the cliff was a massive laboratory spanning several miles. There were walkways, chasms, and all manner of machinery hung from the roof on automated systems. A glass incubating chamber at the far end of the laboratory shone as the brightest part of the already bright laboratory. But within the incubators, Doctor Who looked away, feeling suddenly nauseous. In the incubators were human organs. Passing the incubators were conveyor belts, carrying empty cybersuits, and as they passed the incubators, a Cyberman with a scoop for an arm filled the cybersuits with organs from the incubator.
A cyber factory? How sickening.
Doctor Who took a sip from his hip flask and regained his cool. Suddenly his eyes flared.
Upon my soul.
TARDIS was currently being carried on its side by 6 Cybermen and being placed in the centre of a highly built up area of the lab. This area was covered in spare parts, was dirty, dust-ridden, and had steam emerging from nearly every panel on the floor.
How curious. If I know the Cybermen, then everything would be clean, sterile, spotless, but that mess is very un-Cyberman-like. It's almost a human mess.
You will follow me to our leader.
The special weapons Cyberman prodded Doctor Who with its gun arm. They moved onwards through the Bond villain lair cum laboratory, until much to Doctor Who's disapproval, they reached the messy part of the laboratory. Doctor Who ran his fingers through the grime on a cluttered table before wiping it with his handkerchief. It was a vile place. Truly grotty. The tables were oddly not covered in cyber technology, but a mixture of cyber, Dalek, and Mechanoid technology. Then the Doctor remembered the destroyed architecture on the battlefield. He thought he'd recognised it, but in infinite cosmos he just couldn't place where he'd seen it before. But of course, it was Mechanus. That's where the TARDIS had materialised. Mechanus. Planet of the Mechanoids. And as the penny dropped, behind him, Doctor Who noticed the shell of a Mechanoid. Worn out, blown up, the robotic structure a mere husk of its former glory. Its weapons were removed, its cables extracted, and all its power was gone. It had visible scorching marks around the machine, and it was made obvious that this Mechanoid had been tortured.
Doctor!
A voice called out from behind. A somewhat familiar voice. It chilled Doctor Who, and his suspicions were confirmed as Davros glided over to beside him.
We meet again. Your new face amuses me, but I could sense that you would be here blundering into my plans as always. It has been ever so long since we last met. Ever since the Dalek-Movellan War, I have been imagining ways in which I can enact my vengeance upon you. 70 years of stasis, and now I am free. The universe will suffer at my hand. I see you have met my special project.
Special project?
The Doctor was aghast. He may not have liked the Mechanoids, but he thought their sense of society and ingenuity was unparalleled by any robotic force he had ever encountered before or since.
It's an abomination! Wait, I seem to have missed the obvious again. What are you doing here? This is a cyber factory, not a Dalek factory. How do you come to be here, Davros?
His first meeting with Davros, he had come millimeters away from committing an act of genocide. Davros invited anger. Doctor Who welcomed it. Davros grinned with mouldy teeth.
I have been freed from my stasis prison to serve a much grander purpose, and one that won't lead me to being imprisoned or murdered once again. The Cybermen begged me for my assistance, for my help, and for me to be their new savior. They knew what force the Daleks had, and they were eager to have the same power. They helped me escape the prison ship I was being held in, and brought me here to this installation on Mechanus. A 3-way war is ongoing, and I have aided the glory of the Cyber Empire. Cybermen versus Daleks versus Mechanoids. I have given the Cybermen new weaponry, improved their design, and made them combat-ready to defeat my glorious Daleks.
Davros slammed his hand down onto a grimy table, resulting in a Dalek gun rolling onto the floor with a crash.
You've turned on the Daleks, yet you still bear their image?
The Doctor placed his monocle up to his eye again as he examined the destroyed Mechanoid carcass.
I persist that the Daleks are of greater design than the Cybermen. It has been quite a challenge matching that power and finesse on an inferior cyber skeleton.
Yet I am sure it is a challenge you rose to with glee.
Davros attempted to reach the Dalek gun that had fallen on the floor. He groaned and stretched, but eventually he picked up the weapon. Behind Doctor Who's back, he aimed the gun at him.
Tell me, Doctor, the scanners picked up that you have only one heart. But being a Time Lord, I presumed you'd have two.
Two? What would I need with 2 hearts?
Doctor Who was puzzled. Davros mean by 2 hearts? But before this enigma could be solved, a Cyberman marched between them.
Emperor Davros.
Emperor Davros?
Doctor Who tutted.
The cyber forces have gathered for your inspection in the main chamber of the laboratory.
Confirm,
Grunted Davros as he placed the Dalek gun back on the table.
Excellent.
The Cyberman turned and left, leaving Doctor Who and Davros alone again.
When we last met, I was considering killing you. Murder. Something I don't think I am even capable of.
The Doctor was unusually solemn. Still raking through the destroyed Mechanoid, he was searching for something.
you had opportunity to.
Back on Skaro, I was determined to destroy you and the Daleks, end it at the very beginning, so that the Daleks would never leave Skaro.
Davros' brow seemed to sweat. But then it struck Davros. Last time he had met the Doctor was on Skaro, but it was during the Dalek-Movellan War, and he had brown curly hair, a rainbow scarf, and a binary vascular system. This man who was now standing in front of him was nothing like that. There was only one explanation in Davros' mind.
You are not the Doctor! You are an imposter!
The Doctor grabbed something from inside the Mechanoid's remains and turned it around, pointing it at Davros' chair. It was a strange gun-like object that had clearly just been ripped from the inside of the Mechanoid. Doctor Who pulled the trigger and a blue bolt of electricity shot from it and zapped Davros' chair.
An EMP device. It seems these Mechanoids in their society of robots care very much for their personal security. What do you mean I am not the Doctor?
Davros did not reply.
I only shut down your mobility, not any other parts of your life support. Speak to me, Davros.
I do not recognize you.
That is of little importance. Tell me, what did you salvage from the Mechanoid?
Weaponry, spare parts, processing units, new technology. It has been adapted for use on cyber technology. It has always been the Cybermen's MO to salvage parts from their enemies and use them to improve themselves.
You sicken me.
I don't even know who you are.
I am Doctor Who.
Cyberman!
Exclaimed Davros, and in a shot a Cyberman appeared and awaited instruction.
Bring our guests the info stamp on the Doctor. Let him read up on the history of himself. I'm sure he'll find it fascinating to know that he is not really the Doctor. The Doctor is a Time Lord. You are a human, the filth of the universe. And once you have learnt about yourself, you shall be upgraded.
And with that, Davros quickly grabbed the syringe from his desk and stabbed it into the Doctor's leg, and the Doctor collapsed in a heap as everything went black.